Excellent. Cool. So hello, I'm James Mintram. I'm from a small little indie studio up in the northeast of England, a place called Gateshead. Everyone knows it as Newcastle. I used to be in the Navy, and then I quit and went to university to make games, which was a much better choice. And I've just put a little caveat there to say I'm not brave enough to do any live coding, so it's just going to be screen grabs for this. But you can find all the code on Marmalade's website, because we've done some cool little docs for this stuff as well, which I'll mention again. So, yeah, as Lester mentioned, I've sort of spent a bit of time this year working with Marmalade and Windows Phone 8 and Windows 8, so I thought I'd share all my experiences and point out any sharp edges that I found on the way to help you guys make games for the platforms. So some of the stuff I've worked on, whether you're familiar with or not, I'm going to show you. So we did a game called Butterfinger on Marmalade about 1.5 years ago now for a company called Lady Shotgun Games. That was originally written in Objective-C for iOS, and we took it onto Marmalade and put it out on all the platforms out there, which was really cool. The next one was from I thought you were going to cheer, Don.
I'm just doing it to work.
To work like that, yeah. So yeah, so Nomad Games, you've obviously Don spoken this morning. We took the game that was written in Marmalade and we put it onto Windows 8 and Windows Phone 8, and that was quite a good quite a small process development wise. It took you guys what 1.5 years to do the first version. It took us about 4 weeks to put it onto the Windows Phone 8 platform, Windows 8 platform. So yeah, it was quite good leveraging existing IP there. And then just a little plug for our own game that we've just finished. Check it out, it's good. So why am I standing here then? Well, I think I've just said, because I've worked on a number of Marmalade games. I've written some nice documents that you can find on the Marmalade website. I can't remember the URL, but it's under the I can't remember actually. But if you go to the Marmalade Docs website, there's a Windows Phone 8, Windows 8 section, and you get a couple of, there's 4 PDF files that have got porting tips and guides to get you started that have got a lot of this code that is in the presentation today. And there's a couple of sample apps that you can download and see everything in. I filmed a Microsoft Virtual Academy with Lee at the back there. So that was all on Marmalade. There's one coming out next year, so watch out for that. Again, that's got some more stuff in it. And yeah, I'm here to share some of my handy hints. So the Windows Phone 8 and Windows 8, a quick one. I mean, why bother with it? Well, they're pretty cool devices, low fragmentation, and they're pretty ubiquitous nowadays. I mean, you can pick them up for 40, 50 quid, so people are. I think they're selling more than iOS are in Europe or something like that. So there's a pretty good business case to port your games to it, and especially if it's you're using something like Marmalade and you can do it in a quick amount of time. You can sign up for the app stores and Windows Phone 8, and it's all free for if you're BizSpark and DreamSpark members. I'm sure Lee's mentioned that. Have you, Lee? Yeah. Okay, I'll move on. So what I'm going to talk through today, anyway, is just some specific parts of the development process that I guess stick out. That we had to focus on when doing the Windows Phone 8 and Windows 8 stuff, and I'll have a few code snippets and just some bits that I noted when I was working on it, and hopefully that'll help you guys, get your games on there and make them succeed. So interesting one, this is a unique sort of feature for Windows Phone 8 and Windows 8, is the trial mode. So you can implement this on other platforms through like in-app purchases and things, but for Windows Phone 8 and Windows 8 it's actually built into the store itself. And really good. So it allows you to sort of create a try and buy experience in your games, and what that allows people to do is download your game for free. I guess it's kind of like shareware was sort of 10 years ago. They can play it and play it for free and see if they actually like the game before buying it. And it's all integrated into the way that the marketplace works as well. So it doesn't feel like a bolt-on or anything. It's integrated really nicely. And I'm going to show you in a second. It's really, really easy to integrate with Marmalade, and I strongly recommend, if you're not producing a game that relies on in-app purchases, it's more of a premium experience or whatever, then go down that route because it monetizes better. So integrating this thing into four easy steps. That's the 4 steps there pretty much. You add the Windows Phone Store billing to your MKB file, to your project, include the header file and wherever you need to use it. And then there's 2 API calls that you need. One of them that returns, whether your game is in trial mode or not, and then you do what you want with that. And then one to open the store whenever the user clicks a buy button. So however you implement them is up to you. That's the hooks. That's the 2 things that you need to use, and you can do what you want with it. There are a few possibilities. So one of them is content restriction, which is what we did with Talisman. So I think we had 2 characters that you could play all the way through on. And if you wanted to play missions of anyone else's, then it would show you the buy button, and it would take you through that process, and then unlock the game, and then everything else would become available. Those unlocks would be immediate, so the user would click buy, go to the marketplace, buy it, return to the game, and then it would be immediately unlocked. So it's a pretty good user experience. Time restriction, so you can say, I want to give someone 30 minutes in the game, and then they have to pay for it. And number of plays, like, I don't know, 20 plays or something, and then again, I want them to pay for it. And all of this stuff's, supported within the Windows marketplace, so it's dead easy. You could probably do this start to finish in a couple of hours in an existing game. Obviously, the key parts are that you have to implement the restrictions, and there does need to be some restriction as a certification requirement, so you can't just have a trial mode and then it not unlock anything or do anything. If it's exactly the same as it is after unlocking, then I think that's a failure on certification. But it's quite easy to add things like time restrictions and stuff, so go for it. The next one on monetization is ads. So we integrated Add Duplex into a couple of projects this year, and it was very easy. So Add Duplex is a cross-promotion network targeted at Windows 8 and Windows Phone 8, and it's supplied as an extension that comes with a Marmalade installation. So what was really cool about this is it was dead easy to integrate, and you can choose to use it how you want. So it's cross-promotion. If you want to, say, show ads in your game in exchange for showing ads in other games, you can do that. You can sell ads you can sell ad space in your game, and you can use it for stuff like that. It's actually quite cool, the panel they've got on their website where you can log in and you can see other games that have got it integrated, and you can actually sort of bid for ads. So they might say, I don't know, the CPM for my game is this, and they can describe the game and what it is and all the target sort of demographics. So from your perspective, you can do that yourself. You can integrate it into your game. You can go on the website, you can say, I'm selling ad space in my game for this, and then someone can come along and buy it directly from you. It's really cool. When used as a cross-promotion, I think it works in a sort of a way where you might show 10 ads, and for that you'll have 9 of your ads shown on other devices. So yeah, it's really cool for monetizing your apps, if that's what you want to do, or cross-promoting your apps in exchange for sort of showing other people's apps in your game. So Add Duplex is not quite 4 steps, a little bit more complicated, but there's a lot of similar patterns here. The first thing to note is that we have to add the Add Duplex sub-project to your MKB file. And again, as with any sort of C++ library, you need to include the header file into your project. And then the 3 remaining steps, I'll explain with little bits of code: initializing Add Duplex, configuring it, and then accepting ads. And one thing to note as well, this code works whether on Windows Phone 8 or Windows 8. There's no difference. You integrate it once, and that's that. So registering Add Duplex is quite easy. It's a very similar. It's a sort of standard Marmalade pattern. The way it works here. So I've got this in its own self-contained function. I'm using the config get string method here, which allows you to pull values out of your ICF files, which is where you can store sort of game-centric configuration without having to put it into your source code, which is generally a good idea. It means you don't need to recompile if you want to update the ID. It also means you can do platform-specific IDs, so you might want a different ID on Windows Phone 8 than Windows 8, and this will just handle it automatically. So within this, you get your ID, which is supplied by Add Duplex, and you need that to initialize with. And you register two callbacks. As you can see, one of them's initialize callback, and one of them's an add loaded callback. And when you've got those 2 callbacks initialized, you'll notice there's this I've put 0 there. That could also be null, or some sort of context data that you wish. So if you want to attach, I don't know, if you're using a class and you want the self or this variable, you can put there. So it means you can access the context that you want to call, or any sort of information you want attached to it within the callback. And then once that's all registered, you call S3 add duplex create with the app ID, and then that'll go off. It's an asynchronous call. It'll just go off and do its stuff for however long it needs to. And then it'll call the init callback function here. So I've called it configure. It's sort of, I guess, a two-stage configuration. So we've now sort of had the initialization callback come in. Add duplex has gone done its stuff and said, okay, I'm ready. And in the system data, it gives you the add duplex handle, which you need to interact with add duplex at all, in any which way you want. So you can see here, I've actually I've got in his trial function, and this relates back to the previous part. So this particular game would show ads when it was in trial mode. So that's another thing you can do. You can say when not in trial mode, then don't show ads. If in trial mode, show ads. So I've put a nice if block around there. And if we are in trial mode, we want to continue through this code path and start showing ads. So we call S3 add duplex show, passing in the handle. And then what we want to do is set two properties to kind of decide where we want these ads to be. And they're quite, there's lots of documentation on the website that kind of gives you a variety of flags, vertical line, sort of the size of the ad and where you want it, and that kind of stuff. And that then tells add duplex, okay, so I'm going to go and get ads that are this size and are positioned here. And then that's pretty much everything you need to do. I've put a little IW trace there to say it's initialized. When debugging, you can see it's all working. And that's all really cool. So the final one is the accepting ads. So this is the second callback that I registered. I don't really do much in here. I just sort of trace out to say there's an ad loaded there for debugging purposes. You might have other sort of things you want to do. You might want to log how many ads you get and all that kind of stuff. It's totally up to you. So there's a couple of links there, 3 in fact, to the API, the overview, and there's a nice little example on the Marmalade website. I think this slideshow should be available after, so you can dig through it and get these links. If not, again, there's documentation on the Marmalade website with all of this stuff in, including a full code example with ads that you can, remove the trial mode and the ads will disappear. So that's add duplex. The next one is the back button. Exciting stuff. So the back button, as you probably guessed, is not specific to Windows 8. You get them on Android, not iOS. Handling the back button is a certification requirement. So if you don't deal with the back button in a way that the certification requirements state, then you'll fail and you'll have to resubmit. So it's quite easy to do. You just got to think about, it's more of a design issue, this. How should the back button work? So if you're in the middle of a game, pressing a back button generally brings up the in-game menu. Pressing it again should hide the in-game menu. If you're within menus like title screens or navigation or map screens, you probably want to navigate backwards. So that's more of a traditional kind of stack-based navigation. So, that's the kind of stuff that you should be thinking of. It's not hard to implement, but it's more, it's harder from a design perspective to deal with. And to actually use it is very simple. It's just a keyboard API. And they've actually got a key code called S3 keyback, and all you need to do is make sure is to check whether that's been pressed, and that will become true when the back button's pressed. One thing to note, whenever using the keyboard API, you need to call update on it periodically just to push the events through. If you don't do that, then you can sit there forever waiting for it to happen, and it never will. So bear that in mind. Pause resume. Again, another exciting one, but is probably a good idea. Not specific to Windows 8. This happens on all devices. You're halfway through a game and you get a phone call or text message and you get taken away from the game. How do you deal with returning the user back to the game? So one of the examples we built is it's called Turbo Pong. It's the best Pong game out there. And it gets quite frantic at times. So you think, well, okay, if I'm lining up my back to the ball and I get a phone call, I'm going to be pretty annoyed that when the phone call ends, my ball flies off and I lose my high score. So in that particular game, we had a countdown. We gave the user 3 seconds to get ready and they could move their bat in that time and then it would continue again. So a Twitch-based game like that, you probably want to do that. Something else, I don't know, a puzzle game, probably not so important. But again, thought should really go into that. Improve the sort of user experience. I think on Talisman we didn't really need to do anything because it's turn-based, so there's no real no need to sort of get back into that quickly. Other games we worked on, like a tower defense, we'd show the menu, so when they returned to the game, there'd be the pause menu showing, and then they could resume at their leisure. Oh, and that's I haven't put any code for that, but that's very easy to do. You just register there's 2 callbacks with Marmalade that you can register with from resume and on suspend, and that's where you put all the logic. That is in the documentation that you can find on the website that I wrote. So snap views, this is a unique thing to Windows 8. I don't know if many people know what they are by that name, but you've probably all seen them. It's that weird funky thing when you can shove apps into sort of bits of the screen and stuff. So again, this is a certification requirement. Your app needs to respond well when it is put into a snap view. If it doesn't, it'll fail certification. And basically, it's as it looks. The app gets scaled horizontally, so you can do a number of things. Some games put a pause menu up. Some games put leaderboards up. Some games, say you need to re-expand before you can do anything, and it all depends on the kind of game that you're building. I think at one point Touch the Rope would work because it's a portrait style game until you got to beyond a certain point, and then it would show. Other games wouldn't work so much. I think a big 3D game or something probably wouldn't look good in portrait, so as soon as you go into a snap view, you'd probably have to show something else to the user. Very game specific, again, more of a design issue, but something that you should really put some thought into. The next slide is a lie, because I'm not going to show a demo, because it's on a Mac, and obviously Macs don't have Windows 8 on, or this one doesn't, so we'll skip that one. So yeah, there's some more stuff there. There's a good link there. Microsoft got some documentation on snap views, best practices, design, all that kind of stuff. A lot of it's very specific to apps, and obviously games aren't apps, but thought does need to go into how you deal with your UI, make sure it scales as well. So yeah, I think the minimum you get is 320 as well, so you're never going to get a width of 10 pixels or whatever. You don't have to worry about that. So the final thing I'm going to go on to, which is I guess the biggest one, cloud services. We've done quite a bit of this year ourselves. Why? A lot of people wonder, why cloud services? What do you need them for? Quite a few things we found anyway. I'll read out the list: agility, cross-platform support, single backend, all that kind of stuff, virtual goods, analytics, and cross-play. So all these things today I think are quite essential. Maybe as a small indie developer, your virtual goods management, doing all that stuff's probably, using a cloud service for that's really good, because you don't have to worry about validation of receipts and keeping track of who's bought what, when, and where, because it does all that stuff for you. You can go further than that. You can put a lot of game logic in the back end, and that increases your agility there, because if you think it's 2 weeks to submit an app to a store, and if you get a bug in it, it's another 2 weeks to get that out there, even if it takes you 5 minutes to fix. So there's a lot to be said for sort of putting stuff into the cloud. I know it's a buzzword, but it's pretty good. It increases engagement and retention. So live tiles can work through the cloud. You can get cross promotion. They add Duplex stuff and player recruitment through social channels, Facebook, all that kind of stuff, to help people come and play your game, which is what you want them to do. Build the entire game on it. So we actually built an entire game on the cloud this year. It's called Fit Sports, real-time fantasy game. We process data from Opta that comes in real time. So you pick a team, you play against someone, and depending on the players you picked, how well they do through the match, you get points for. Within 30 seconds of a goal scoring on TV, you'll have the score on your phone. And there's loads of different stuff we can do, like head-to-head, private leagues, public leagues, and all of that's run on the cloud, and it means we can update the gameplay sort of within a couple of minutes. So that's really cool. And obviously, anyone heard of Titanfall, that all runs in the cloud as well. So it's definitely worth looking into. So there's a couple of things that are available through Marmalade on this, on the cloud services side of things. You've got Azure, which is Microsoft's offering to the world. And BizSpark members get £95 a month usage, which is pretty good. And you get all the stuff like push notifications, cloud storage, you can scale up forever. And then you can interact with it through REST, and Marmalade has got a nice IWHTTP interface, which is worth looking into, that allows you to write code that will interact with that and leverage it and make use of all these really cool features. I've not used IWHTTP and for REST APIs recently. I did a couple of years ago. It's pretty reasonable and worth looking into. The one I will go into some detail with is a service called GameSparks. That's because we built an SDK for it, and we built the Flip Sports game on top of that as well. Well worth looking into. So what is it? It's a platform as a service for games. It does social, multiplayer, cloud code, leaderboards, achievements, and virtual goods. So all that kind of stuff that I mentioned before to make your game really good and sit next to all the big games that are out there that have got massive teams working on them and stuff. So yeah, I'd look into that. They do free stuff as well. You get some, speaks for itself there. There's a nice little link to look at the sort of more details. So you can basically get started on it for very little overhead. You can start building social interaction. You can send invites out to your Facebook friends very easily. You can do challenges head to head. I'm going to challenge my mate that I can beat him on this game at this level, and it's really simple. Small amounts of code that you need to use to do that. And GameSparks loves Marmalade. How nice. So you can access your GameSparks services from Marmalade. The SDK is coming soon, but I'll go through some of the features that you can do with it, and it makes it dead easy for you to connect to it. Once you're connected, you can start requesting, making calls, and really add in some of these cool features to your game in a cross-platform fashion. So a few steps again. We've got the Init, OnConnect, Auth, Leaderboard Submit, and Leaderboard Response. So what I'm going to go through here is just a standard kind of initializing GameSparks, connecting to it, authenticating, and then I'll show you sort of how you would do sort of a basic leaderboard, which I guess is like print hello world in cloud service land. So the Init again, we've got this. We've got a standard sort of what you'd expect. With a cloud service, you've got a secret and an app ID, which are no longer working, by the way, so I wouldn't try them. And then we set a callback up for when we connect, called connect callback, and that's all we need to do. So in the OnConnect callback, we receive some user data. Again, it's that same pattern of I want some context data when I call connect, and then it will give it back to me so I can use it. We've now connected to GameSparks, so what do we want to do? Well, we need to authenticate. We can't do anything on it until we've authenticated. It doesn't make sense, not to, so you can authenticate through username, password. Again, those don't work anymore. I don't know if password ever did. You can authenticate through device, so, like a unique ID for the device, but not the actual device itself. It's some other thing on Apple now. But yeah, you can have a user sort of authenticate based on their installation. And there's a final one, Facebook. That's right. You can authenticate through Facebook, so you can ask the user to log in through Facebook, send the details of the authentication token off, and then it will just do the rest for you. You'll have access to all the friends and stuff like that, so you can send challenges out and things. But obviously, we need to create this request, and then we do auth request.send, giving it another callback. So your callbacks are quite common things in these things, and we get a response here. So we get an authentication response, and it checks whether we've got errors and whether we don't have any errors. And ideally, you don't want errors. But yeah, okay. So once we are connected and we're authenticated, we want to send the leaderboard request out. So this is another bit. This is all code in the sample game, by the way. So the Turbo Pong has all this built in. You can look at it and see how it all works. And this is just a part of the code at the end of a game. When you get a high score, it will submit to GameSparks with your name, and you can see that come back as a leaderboard. So the first thing we always do, check if we're authenticated. Then we want to build a new request key there that basically says, I want to submit a new score to the leaderboards and send that off. And then what we do is we send the message there with a two-second timeout, and again a submit score callback, and then we clean up our data afterwards and let it go off again, all asynchronous. That's one thing to bear in mind, asynchronous. Everything's asynchronous, you need to bear that in mind from the user interface perspective. And then when we return, we update the scores. So what we're doing here is we're requesting. We've submitted a score. Now we want to request the scores because obviously I want to see what the latest leaderboard looks like after I've submitted my stuff. So I make another request here called leaderboard data request create. I want 5 people. I want the leaderboard because you can have multiple leaderboards. You can have hundreds of leaderboards if you want, but this one's called scores, imaginatively. And the offset 0, top of the leaderboard list, and social. So that's this Facebook thing we've been talking about, where you can compare your leaderboard scores with all your friends. So a lot of games have global leaderboards and leaderboards within my friends, and then my personal local leaderboard. All that stuff's dead easy. Send the request off, and then it will return the data, and then you can process that into your leaderboard, and you've got some really cool features for your game. On top of that, I mean, I'm not going to dig into the code side of stuff myself. I think as Jamie later on is going to talk probably more about that. But you can do loads of cool stuff on the server, so you can award achievements and stuff. So if you become, if one of your players suddenly becomes the top of a global leaderboard, you can give them an achievement, for example. You can give them in-game currency. You can do all these really cool things that basically make your game, stand out and quite competitive. You can reset leaderboards. You can do all that kind of stuff yourself, and sort of use the analytics side of it as well to see how that's actually helping people play the game, if you're getting people to like it or not like it. And if they don't like it, it takes you 2 minutes to disable it as well. So it's really quite cool. So this time I've remembered to put a final slide on. I didn't last time. Thanks for watching. Just remember, watch me and Lee in the MVA in February.
Yeah, you all go to mine next week as well.
Oh yeah, you can watch us next week as well, if you so desire. And read the docs I wrote. So they're on the marmalade.com website. There's 4 of them, and then there's 2 sample apps. Take a look through that. It will show all the same stuff that I've shown here. A lot more detail as well that I could go into today. And yeah, enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much.